Here we go. This is Sports by the Book. We are live from the South Point Hotel and Casino Sports Betting Show. Our goal is to give you great information and to make you a more educated sports bettor. If you are new, we appreciate you. We are now up to 1,000 subscribers. Again, thank you so much for following and hanging with us. If you are new as well, I'm Alex White. This will be my 4th year handicapping hockey. I'm very excited, and I have added sports throughout these years. Been around sports betting all my life, though. I love it, live for it. And that is mostly thanks to this guy right here, the Wizard of Odds, Kenny White, my father. You have a little bit more experience than me in this sports betting thing.
Just a little bit, because I didn't start you at an early age like your grandfather started me at an early age of learning how to bet. And, think about it. This is the God's honest truth. Because I was going into sports books with my dad, 15 years old, I would go into books at 16 and make bets. At 16 years old, walk into the Santa Anita, walk into the Gary Austin's, Churchill Downs, and my main spot of betting was the Bingo Palace Casino, which is now the Palace Station off of Sahara, and that was pretty close to home. But at 16 years old, I was going in there making sports bets, mainly parlays, 4 or 5 team parlays.
That's where everyone starts, right? Where was your first job? Which sports book?
The Santa Anita. Santa Anita Racing Sportsbook on the Strip. And again, you have to be 21 to bet. You have to be 21 to work in the gaming industry. Well, in February, I was playing softball with a bunch of bookmakers and told them this would be my last Sunday because I just took a new job that I'll be working Sunday nights and won't be able to play softball anymore. And Bobby Davis and Jeff Garrett both said, how much you making on that job? I said, probably minimum wage. And they said, come in to see us tomorrow at the Santa Anita. You're hired. And I said, well, I'm only 20. They said, don't worry about it. You'll work till you're 21. And when you turn 21, we'll send you down to get your gaming card. So I worked the first 6 months in the industry at 20 years old because I was a good softball player. They also knew my dad and knew my dad was a really good sports bettor. So they knew that I knew the industry. And I think they knew that I was already betting there at the Santa Anita as well. So that's how I started my career, and it was at the Santa Anita, and then I moved on to the Fremont, worked at the Fremont as the sportsbook director there for 2 years, and found out there wasn't a lot of money to be made at the Fremont being a sportsbook manager, and started my own odds-making company, Nevada Sports Executives, which I ran for about 15 years, 20 years, maybe in that range, and sold my information to sportsbooks. At one time, I had about 18 clients until consolidation hit the industry.
And then after that, you switched. You sold. Well, you had another company.
I purchased. I kind of moved out of the space when consolidation hit the industry, and I kept my 4 biggest clients was the Stardust, Robert Walker at the Mirage, and Nick Bogdanovich at the Horseshoe. They were my 3 biggest clients. I kept them and decided I was going to go coach baseball. And I coached high school baseball for about 12 years, doing on the side coaching on the side, but my 3 biggest clients kept me going. And then one day I got a phone call and said, we want you to buy LVSC. And I said, well, I'm flattered that you think I have $5 million, but I don't. I have 4 kids going through Gorman High School. I don't have that. And then they said, you would be shocked at the price that it's going for right now. And I contacted my gaming attorney to see if she was interested, and she was. And we went down and we kicked the tires, looked under the hood, and said, you know what? I think we can make this work. So we bought Las Vegas Sports Consultants and ran that for about 5 years until Cantor Gaming purchased us, and I stayed with them for another year and a half.
Well, now it's been a lot of fun. You are on the other side, professional sports bettor, taught me everything I know, and now you're here doing a show to teach others. So how was your football weekend? And we will get to today's action very shortly because we do have 2 really good baseball games and a Monday night football game, of course.
We got day action, and then I can this has been one of the things I've wanted to do and pitch this idea to CBS while I was with them, a father-daughter sports betting show, because you've learned so much and you've become such a great sports bettor and handicapper, and the information that you talk about is outstanding. And I thought you and I, so thanks to Ann, thanks to Chris Andrews, thanks to Mr. Gone for allowing us to do this. So it is such an honor to be here and do this with you. I love doing it. And I continue to think about ideas. How can we make the show better? How are we going to make this one of the best, most watched shows in the industry? Because it should be. We give better information than anyone else. We break down games differently than the way other people break down games.
We're going to do our best here today to give out great information as well. We're going to do today's action, and then about halfway through the show, probably about that 9:30 mark, we will dive into college football. We like to give the pace of play, run percentage, pass percentage for the top teams in college football going into each week. We will also update everybody on our top 10, which, spoiler alert, I did see both of ours to plug them in, and they are very close. So unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of differences there, which is either really good or could be bad. But I think both of ours are.
Parity is the word
good
in college football these days. I really feel like now with nil and players getting paid and the college football playoff now it's expanded to so many teams. It's like the NFL playoffs that this is becoming a lot like the NFL. And there's more and more parity because with nil, if you don't like what you're getting paid in the transfer portal, you can go somewhere else in free agency and get more money. So it is getting so much like professional sports.
Coach is really doing a good job with college football, too, managing all of that. I can only imagine how tough that is. And when you have players that are making more than you probably ever will, it's got to be tough to deal with all those different personalities. But to your point, I mean, some big upsets again this weekend. Alabama goes down, and I don't think that's just on Alabama's defense. I think Vandy has been playing very good. I mean, they played Missouri very tough, and Tennessee goes down, USC goes down. And that's one of the things we do like to talk about too, and a lot of people do, but look ahead spots or letdown spots, and USC, Penn State up next. So seems like that was a look ahead spot for them. And then Alabama coming off that emotional win over Georgia just came out a little bit flat against Vandy. But you're right, that's what makes this very fun. And college football playoffs expanding. Now they can afford one loss, but really now it'll be interesting. Georgia with one loss, Bama with one loss, Texas kind of sitting there very fortunate that they had a bye week this week, and now they their schedule gets tougher and tougher.
Yeah, it is amazing on one weekend that 2 top 5 teams lose straight up. And again, Sammy P asked me on Tuesday, I do his show, Chicken Dinner, his podcast, every Tuesday. And that was the first question he asked me because he looks at my power ratings. He gets them every week. And he said, have you ever seen such a logjam at the top of 8 teams that could beat anybody on a given day that you have within 1 score of each other? And I said, Sam, I do not recall that many teams that you could make a case to be number 1 in the country. I mean, you'd go through the list year in and year out. And Nick Saban, when you see the loss to Vanderbilt, you know what a great coach Nick Saban was because his team was well prepared every week to play. This would have never happened to Nick Saban. Sorry. It just wouldn't have happened.
He was very good.
Alabama's there.
Preventing those.
Georgia's been there now on the scene the last 8 years. Ohio State has been there for many years. Clemson jumped into the scene for a little bit. Michigan jumped into the scene. USC back in the early 2000s. But that's about it. Those teams were always in a jumble of three teams every year competing for the national championship. And now, like I said, and Sammy pointed out to me, there's 8 teams, at least 8 teams that have a shot at a national championship this year.
Well, it makes it a lot of fun, that's for sure. And we have had really good weekends, really fun matchups. We didn't even mention A&M and Missouri, the only ranked versus ranked matchup, and Texas A&M really handled business in that one. But we'll get to more college football in 20 minutes or so. But let's talk about Monday Night Football here. New Orleans Saints, Kansas City Chiefs. Line has not really moved on the spread side, at least here at the South Point. Open 5.5 is still sitting there 5.5, with Kansas City, of course, being the favorite at home. But the total has been an interesting mover. Open 42 here at South Point, and now this is the highest one, 43.5.
Well, the one thing that Mr. Gone and our boss, Chris Andrews, they get that this show shouldn't just be about the South Point. Even though it's from the South Point, it's the industry, and what goes on in the industry we should talk about. And they get it. And I think that's the right thing to do. But But this game tonight is the second most wagered game in the circa millions in favor of the Saints. 1,944 people selected the Saints over the Chiefs tonight. 515 have the Chiefs -5.5. So it's nice that we're able to talk about that because I think that's good information. Now, I have talked to a couple of friends that are supervisors in this industry, and they've been watching the ticket count all week, and they keep telling me they haven't written a ticket on the Saints.
Wow.
So it's kind of odd that, you find this is a $1,000 entry fee. So a lot of these people put in a lot of work. A lot of the people out here that are in the seats put in a lot of work, but it seems like the general public is backing the Chiefs.
Is it that interesting, though? Because both of our numbers, if you look at our power rating number, we both have a lean to the Chiefs here. But we might have thrown the Saints in one of our contests.
Yeah.
Because of how well dogs have done this year, and even dogs of 6 or more have won outright more than any year before. So it is tough, and when you're going for contests, I think you really want to take those points, right?
Yes, and it's the NFL, and I talk about it a lot on my show and trying to teach, and that's what we're here to do, is we're trying to teach sports betting. What should come every day? There's something you can learn different almost every day, and in any walk of life. You can learn something new every day. And the more you write down and keep those notes, or the better your memory is, the better you'll do with these notes that we give you. But I take 20% off my favorite number because I don't want to bet favorites, whatever the favorite is. And this game I made Kansas City 8.5, pure power ratings and home field. They are the best team in football. They have one of the best home fields in football. And that's my number. The Saints are up and comers. This is Dennis Allen's third year. He was 16-18 his first 2 years. Derek Carr was there last year. Kamara was there. Same defense. They did bring in Clint Kubiak as the offensive coordinator, but we know who's better. The Chiefs are the better football team, and they're playing at home. But again, I always say this, and that's why I don't bet favorites. That if we lay 5.5 tonight and then the Chiefs win by 1, they will celebrate like they won a playoff game. They are going to be happy as can be. They moved to 5-0. I think the Saints have performed better than the Chiefs, and we'll break down some of that. But I take that 20% off the favorite because I hate it when I lose a bet and they're celebrating because they won. So that's why I don't really like to have favorites. And I'll say it again: dogs cover over 40 years. If you put every season together, the underdog covers 51% of the time. The favorite covers 48% of the time. So you have a 3% edge on betting dogs.
College football had a great Saturday. My 3 biggest losses were all favorites: Arizona, Louisville, and then I did take Oklahoma State, who we will get to because they are definitely on my bottom performer from this past week. But sticking with NFL right now and this game, of course, we do need to mention there are a lot of injuries on the Chiefs side as well. We already know Pacheco has not been there for a couple weeks now, no Rashee Rice. So we know offensively this Chiefs team could struggle a little bit. Looking at their percentage, you said the Saints have performed better throughout 4 weeks. 37% of their drives result in touchdowns. They are leading the league. Well, that was going into this past week. We'll see what the numbers are after we add in yesterday's games. And a top defense, opponents scoring on just 10% of their drives. Chiefs are good in both categories, 23% on offense and 18% on defense. Good, not great, though, where the Saints are having this tremendous year. Of course, a lot goes into strength of schedule, though, and I know that you usually keep track of all those numbers as well. But overall, you're not betting the side, right? You've got your ticket on the Saints for a contest, and that's good enough.
Yeah, and I, again, after I take my 20% off, I'm making the game 6.5. I shouldn't be betting the Saints, but it was hard to find live underdogs throughout the week, and I know this is a game that Andy Reid's a very conservative coach. You mentioned the weapons that the Chiefs are missing. Their leading rusher, Isaiah Pacheco, and their leading receiver, Rashee Rice. That's two big pieces. But when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, he may make someone else a star tonight because he's got a great offensive line in front of him. But they like to get conservative in the second half. And we've got Captain Comeback Derek Carr, for the Saints, that you could get a backdoor cover as well. And that's why I don't like to bet favorites, because they sit on leads. And that's what the Chiefs love to do at home. And again, I wish my number was better than that. Here at the SoPo, it's 43.5.
Nothing, can't do anything with that then.
I made it 42. No, I was thinking earlier, I don't have, I'm going to go in just with one of our tickets on the Saints tonight, plus the points only because of the favorite thing. But I thought if the Chiefs get out to a 14-0 lead and I can get a total like under 45.5, I'm going to go under in game.
Okay. An in-game potential game here for Kenny White. Let's go to some baseball because we do have two really good baseball games on deck. How about the Padres? Huge win yesterday over the Dodgers. Remember, these are best of 5 series, though, so now they split. A lot of these actually are split right now. Phillies and Mets, of course, 1-1. And then this is game 2 here for these two teams, Detroit Tigers, Cleveland Guardians. Scooble will be on the mound here for Detroit, and that's why you're seeing them as a slight favorite, $1.27 here at the South Point. Nope, $1.28 at the South Point. Lowest total that we have seen so far at 6. We'll start there before we get into that other game. But I know you were talking about Boyd as well, who will get the start for the Guardians, and you have some good numbers on him.
Yeah, Boyd's a really good pitcher. Matthew Boyd's a lefty. He's a veteran. He was a Detroit Tiger. I don't know if that's who he was drafted by, but he pitched in the professionals with the Tigers his entire career, basically, until this year with Cleveland. And he was on the injured reserve list. His first game was August 13th. He had 8 starts. They kind of just groomed him each start to go a little bit deeper into games. He's up to, a median of 5 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 1 run for the season. So he's pitched very well. The only problem is he hasn't had a start since the 21st, September 21st. So he's been off some time. He could be a little shaky in the first inning until he finds his command. But he's a veteran. He is a lefty. He is going up against the Tigers. When I say he's a veteran, I think he's going to be well prepared because he's thrown on the side, and he's probably even asked, let me throw a simulated game, kind of a BP type of deal. I didn't read that, but I would guess he probably has. So I think he pitches well. I adjusted my total again. My first total on this game was 6, and then I looked over the numbers and how well both guys have pitched. This is a 1-1 game going to the 7th inning. So I went through my numbers, I adjusted it. I have the total 5.5 now, and it is kind of that zigzag game that the Tigers need the game. I made them a dime, but I'll add 25 cents on for them winning. So I made it $1.35. I went under 3.5. I found a 3.5 under -30 for the first 5 innings. And I was surprised the Tigers were like $1.45 in the first 5 innings because of Scooble.
Yeah.
And they know how good he is. So they know that there may be a drop off to the bullpen, but I don't think so. These two are the best 2 bullpens in baseball that are left of teams playing. These are the best bullpens. Cleveland's the best bullpen, believe it or not, of anyone in the major leagues.
Oh, I believe it. I've been talking about it all summer long. They've had the best ERA for bullpens since the middle of the summer, if not longer. That's when I started to realize.
It figures why they're here, because their offense has never been great. The numbers just aren't there offensively. And, it's funny when they face a righty, they can run 9 lefties out there against that righty because they got a couple switch hitters and they platoon a couple players. But and Jose Ramirez, what a great season. I wish they would have been able to play the last game and got to see him maybe have a chance to hit 40 home runs. He is one of the best players in the big leagues. He is so much fun to watch. But
yes.
Facing Scooble today is going to be tough. He's already pitched a playoff game. 6 innings, no runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts at Baltimore. That's kind of what we're going to get today, but he's probably going to give up a run. So again, I went under 3.5 first 5. And I do like the Tigers. I did lay $1.20 on the Tigers for the game.
That was a really impressive first postseason game for him as well, because we did see the Tigers do some celebrating after they had clinched and made it into the playoffs. He was ready to go, no drop off.
Well, August 8th, I think they played in Cooperstown, and there was no shot of them making the playoffs. 1% chance of making the playoffs, and here they are. Derek Stevens, I know, has a really nice ticket on this team to go to the World Series, to win the American League pennant. I don't know. I think it's going to pay $200,000, maybe more, maybe even more than that. I can't remember if it was $2 million or $200,000, but yeah, no hedging for him either.
And they even were sellers before the deadline, but here they are. Let's go ahead and move to the other game on the board. Kansas City Royals have Cole Reagans on the mound against Carlos Rodon and the Yankees. The Yankees were pretty fortunate to get that first game. Now here they are, $1.46 favorite, total 7.5 under, -115.
Great pitching matchup, two really good left-handers. And again, though, time off for Rodon. He hasn't pitched in September, so a little bit of time off, maybe rusty. And this guy I saw pitch in college at NC State. And when I saw him pitch in the World Series, this guy's going to win Cy Young Awards. Not just one. He's going to win multiple, but he's had some arm injuries in his career. He was with the White Sox organization. Such a shame. If he would have been a Tampa Bay Ray or a St. Louis Cardinal, he would have won a couple of Cy Young Awards. But he's got great stuff. The guy can throw in the high 90s and great cutter slider to go with that fastball. But his year hasn't been the greatest. Again, a 3.96 ERA, Alex. His median start for the year, home and away, 5 2/3, 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. Cole Reagans, 6 innings, 4 hits, 1.5 earned runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. I feel like the Royals are going to have the lead in this game going into the 7th inning. It's going to be all up to the bullpen, and both these teams do have good bullpens.
So a little bit of a lean to the Royals. They're getting that plus money.
I bet the Royals this morning. Just, we've got 2 games today, and I'm betting small. Again, I preach money management, so I'm betting just 1% of my bankroll on these plays.
I like it, though. Zigzag theory, too. Yankees fortunate to get that first win. Royals come back here strong. You're getting plus 136. I do want to mention that we do have exact outcomes here at the South Point. Chris Andrews actually dropped this off to us last week. So with all the teams that are left, I also we have some prop bets for tonight's football game between the Saints and the Chiefs. And then tomorrow, I'm excited. Regular season hockey, NHL is back. 3 games on the board. Odds are already up here. And then we also have a game 5 in the WNBA semifinals. So we will get to those tomorrow and break down all of those games. Anything else for today's action for you looking at these 3?
The football game tonight, that's what everyone loves is football. I'm glad we get to break down the baseball, and they're betting on it today. And we have day baseball. The Cleveland game goes at 1:08 Pacific, 4:00 Eastern. That's always fun. And it's always fun to be in the book when a game's going on and a game of this meaning. So, I guess it's really not fun to root for unders, but you got, I think, a really good pitching matchup with Boyd. I know he hasn't thrown in a while, but being a veteran lefty and being an ex-Detroit Tiger, man, he could not have wanted to be in a better spot than this today. So I think it'll be fun. I think it's going to be a really good pitching matchup between these two guys.
I know what you were thinking. You want to give out more for this NFL game, and I wish that we did have more and had more time to get props and all of that good stuff. But fortunately for everybody who is with us right now, we have a special show coming up at 3 p.m., and that is Sports by the Book Football Frenzy. Well, they will break down this game completely, give out their prop bets, give out their side and who they are. That is Ryan McCormick and Jeff Parles. So make sure you check out that show at 3 if you want even more information on this Monday Night Football game. And they'll also give out their top 10 college football ratings or rankings as well.
I have more information on it that we really didn't break it down completely. And we just went over my numbers and your numbers, and we really didn't come up with a play. But Dennis Allen, the head coach of the Saints, 22-12 to the under in his first 2 years. He's a ex-defensive coordinator. This year they are 3-1 to the over. They started out hot against Carolina and at Dallas, but the last 2 weeks, scoring has been down a little bit in their games, and I expect them to be conservative. They're number 1 in the NFL in running the football, 57% of the time. They're the 3rd slowest team, 30.3 seconds in between plays. The Chiefs, the 14th highest run team, 46%. Remember, the league average is 42%, so they do run higher than the average NFL team. Even without Pacheco tonight, I think they'll still run. I think Carson Steele and Kareem Hunt will be the main ball carriers. They're 21st in pace, 30 seconds. So we're not going to have a ton of plays. The average plays around 122. We're probably going to have about 116 plays. And we look at Andy Reid, and there's why trends don't pay the rent. You could have done all the research you wanted to. Andy Reid, 61-30 under at home. You saved all your money up, said, I'm going to bet on every Chief game under. And 2 home games so far, Baltimore and Cincinnati, both went over. They barely went over, but they went over. He is an over coach on the road. And you could have said, well, I'll bet all of their games on the road over. Oh, you lost both those games too against Atlanta and the Chargers. Both went under. But again, I'm looking at that trend more that the Chiefs' last 2 games did go under. Without Pacheco, without Rice, I think they do play a little bit more conservative, more time to prepare. It leans me to the under. I only have a 1.5 advantage to that under, but the trends all lean that direction. So I do. I mean, if I had to make a bet and you said, a guy named Rocky Man, I remember when I started at the Fremont, he'd come in every day, and he was a softball guy, really funny man, and he just gregarious. And he would go, if I put a gun to your head, who do you like? That's what he would say, because I'd tell him, I don't have an opinion on Rocky. My numbers are right there. And then he'd pull his gun out of his finger gun, and he'd go, if I got a gun to your head, who are you going to bet tonight? And I'd tell him under the 43.5 tonight. Rocky.
I mean, not to mention both defenses are very good, and we have our concerns with the Chiefs side, and with the Saints, Alvin Kamara, wow, he is having an outstanding year. I thought he was a lot older than he was, and then we saw him just go off this year. So, yeah, a lot of running in this game. So I'm with you on that lean to the under for sure. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we are jumping into college football. We will give you our top 10 going into Week 7. Don't go anywhere. This is Sports by the Book.
Get ready to laugh with Punchlines with Frank Nicotero. Join Frank, Ryan McCormick, and their team of featured guests for your daily dose of comedy.
The deli has mayo, just a little here.
Well, Cowboys fans think it's good to be their year.
Sports.
I'm a Steelers fan. The Steelers are
sorry to hear that.
Do I hate Tom Brady? Yes. Do I respect Tom Brady? No.
And the funniest social media posts.
People want to show off their food. Boom. Wiener on a guy's shoulder. Because you're like, oh, it's Libby. Oh, she looks like my Italian aunt.
It's your one-stop spot for great laughs and a good time. Find us on YouTube at Punchlines FN. Join the chat live weekdays at noon Pacific for the ultimate blend of jokes, sports, and viral fun.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Sports by the Book. We are live from the South Point Hotel and Casino. South Point Studio, that is the umbrella here. A lot of great shows going on. We've got this show every morning, 9 a.m. every day except for Saturdays. We are on at 8 a.m. I told you about the Football Frenzy. You can find them Monday and Thursdays at 3 p.m. and then Friday, 2-hour show with Jeff Parles and the Bookmakers from 2 to 4. They cover all the best, most important college football games for the first hour, and then the NFL slate as well. Shout out to everybody who is in our chat. Frank Nicotero, appreciate you getting up early with us and joining us here. We have, of course, Vince and Dean Hilt, two of our regulars that we really appreciate as well. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not already. And I talked a lot about Sports by the Book. I almost forgot to mention Punchlines. Please go to Punchlines FN and subscribe. Follow that show as well. That is Monday through Friday at noon. So,
what's that FN for? Fun?
Fun, yep.
His middle name's Ulysses. Frank Ulysses Nicotero. And that's his acronym.
Let's see if he comments on that, if that is true.
I love it. I mean, walking in the studio, when you see Frank's pretty face and his smile, just brings your day up right away. I mean, I'm a happy-go-lucky person in the morning. I'm not a bad morning person. So, I mean, I'm always in a good mood in the morning. It's nighttime. Don't catch me at nighttime, right, Alex? Don't catch me at 8:30. I'm exhausted, and I don't really want to talk about sports or numbers.
Yeah, and you get
morning. I'm good.
Like, What?
What?
No, you never say that. But shout out Cofield and Company. I'm very excited to see them in the chat as well. I will be on Cofield and Company this Thursday, 3 to 6, and that is ESPN Radio 1100.
I'll be on there Friday at 4:44 with Cofield and Company. I love doing it I love doing the local stuff. I've been doing local radio for years, and I've gained a lot of friends through that as well. Have met a lot of people that, just being on the local stuff.
Love it as well. All right, we got to break down our college football numbers over this past weekend. We're going to start off with our run-heavy teams. Is that where we're starting? Or you want to start with...
I want to start performance?
Let's go performance. That's what I was thinking as well. I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm going to start with 3 of the bigger schools that were my top performers, and then I do have 4 smaller schools, but they definitely made the list, if not above these teams. So West Virginia, one of my top performers from this weekend, 38-14 win over Oklahoma State, held the Cowboys to 1.7 yards per carry. That is one of the best running backs in the country. So very good defensive game from West Virginia. Vandy, number 2, 40-35 win over the former AP number 1 in Alabama. They had a total of 418 yards, average 12 yards per play. And here, Chris Andrews just got here. I want to give a shout out to Diego Pavio, too. Completed 80% of his passes, 12.6 yards per play, 252 passing yards. Number 3, Texas A&M. That was a huge win over Missouri, 41-10. You could say the Tigers kind of gave up there pretty early, but they did hold the Tigers to 2.3 yards per carry. And they had a total of 236 rushing yards for themselves. Huge.
So Chris and I are going to sing a duet.
Okay, here
Ready?
we go.
Yeah.
We've been practicing.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
I wanted to ask you. This is
I
like
warmed up for nothing.
Oh, yeah. Well, you did all. Well, that's okay. It's good for you to do those singing
Yeah, okay.
exercises we showed you. But isn't this a year for the ages for the sports books? I know you want to be quiet about it, but isn't this a crazy year?
It started off great. This last weekend wasn't great.
No.
I mean, it was okay. We made a little bit. But I heard what you were talking about with Sammy P.
Yeah.
So many guys, so many teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess Ohio State and Texas, but after that, I mean, you look at Bama, Georgia hasn't played that well. Oregon's been a little disappointing. We could just run the list, but I think the playoff is going to be great.
It's going to be great.
What I'm really anxious to see, I can't wait till these southern schools got to go north to play somebody.
Oh, you're
Playing
right.
some weather.
You're right.
That's the way football's supposed to be.
Yes,
So.
that is very true. So this week, like Jimmy likes to say, ham sandwich.
Yeah. It wasn't ham. I don't mean prosciutto either. I mean, the boiled ham you get in the for sale. Anyway,
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
Changes. They're
Okay.
firing at me.
Well, we figured that. Thank you,
It
Chris.
doesn't take long.
Yes. Have a great day. Thanks for being with
Yes,
us.
thank you, Chris.
Thanks for letting us do this. We love talking sports together. So there you go. Chris Andrews. And I love, I was thinking about that today because, we talk about making a bet on something. So a little bit on what do they say on the money line? If you're going to, I can't remember the name of the word, but sometimes you say pizza money.
Yeah, pizza money.
So you're thinking $20 bet. Pizza money. Yeah. I love a lot of toppings. Come on, Mr. Andrews. No toppings on the pizza. But again, in the book, I used to laugh that Jimmy Vaccaro would always say, we want a ham sandwich in the book. So we know they want a little bit. It wasn't bad. Probably enough to pay the salaries. Well,
I'm curious if it was more college or NFL, but
yeah, that would be interesting. We didn't ask him that. I wish I would have asked him that because I can't. I have so much work to do, and you know how that is. I can't sweat scores. So I watched 2 baseball games on Saturday. I didn't want to see any college scores. I have no idea how I did. I had 42 plays on the regular board, and I had 68, something like that, on the FCS board. So I had over 100 bets, and I didn't want to know one. And if I know one, if it won or lost, I want to see another one, and then I get all day. I start sweating scores. So I didn't look at anything. I got up in the morning on Sunday morning. The first thing I did, I had to go look at the scores at that point. And my first 5 FCS games, winner. I'm like, oh my gosh, this could be the day, because I haven't had one of those days yet. But by the time I got through the entire thing, I think I was 33-28 or something like that in the FCS game. So a small winner. And I kind of thought of that. I won a ham sandwich, basically for all that work that I did on the FCS. And I thought it was going to be one of those days where it was going to be 45-15. And I can't wait for that day. It's coming.
Yes, it definitely is. And it is weird, or, I mean, it does make sense, but how it switches for people like this year. And I remember the last few years I would call to talk about NFL, and you didn't have the best, most positive outlook. You were like, I don't like the NFL. I don't want to talk about it. It's impossible to beat. This year, you're seeing NFL very, very good. And you usually, college is always your strongest sport.
And I'm still betting way more on my college games than I am on the NFL games. And I always say that because I know behind the book what the whole percentage is. If you go back 40 years in the state of Nevada, the NFL, the books are holding on straight bets probably 3.5-4%, and on the sides, not the totals, but on college they're probably holding 1% on the sides in college. So I know where you're supposed to bet and what you're supposed to bet on, but you're right. Every year is different. Yeah. One year when you were young, it was the Renatas in Henderson had a football contest, and it was against the spread, and I hit 69%, picking 7 games per week. It was the Guinness World Record. I don't know if they put it in the book or not, but 69% in picking against the spread. Now, they did have a lot of bad lines on some games that there were injuries in, and you got to use those numbers. But I won that contest, and it was one of the bigger contests that I've won straight up. I think it was like a $60,000 payout.
I will say for those that are watching to learn here with us, it is a huge difference. So the last man standing contest that I have done now for a few years, they put their sheet out on Wednesday, and there is a lot of movement and you can find advantages there. In these other contests that I'm in now, you have to use the line that is set on Friday, and it is really tough to beat. So, I mean, that just goes to show, bet early, right? Get the best number, get the closing line value, even though it can not always go your way, but in the end, it is definitely beneficial.
And, that's why I'm really fallen in love with the FCS, because the numbers go up Thursday, Friday at a couple of big name sports books, not in this state, that they're not taking bets in this state. But that's not a market because they're not the big movers and shakers when it comes to limits and how much you can bet. So I love it because it's not until Saturday morning. So I have all week now to really go over these games in the FCS and come up with the best possible line I can. It hasn't been great yet. That's the problem. I think I'm probably dead even on the entire year in those, but I love that because the last 2 weeks I've been so busy. I didn't bet on Sunday at the Circa when they opened. We didn't bet at all. So when you get behind the 8 ball and the numbers move, you miss a lot of good plays. But I just didn't have the work done. If I don't have the complete total work done on these games, I don't think you should bet them until you do.
No, I fully understand that. But let's continue with our top performers. So I went over my top 3 with the big name schools: West Virginia, Vandy, Texas A&M. Smaller schools: Army, 49-7 win over Tulsa. Tulane, 71-20 over UAB. Charlotte, big win over East Carolina as a 9.5-point underdog. They won 55-24. And then Marshall, 52-37 over App State. Now, App State is really having a down year, but still I thought that was pretty impressive. And the numbers, the difference from where I had made the number, Marshall falls right there in the middle of my top performers.
Wow, your teams are, when you talk about them, I'm usually right there. I've got Marshall just barely breaking 100. My ranking on them was a 61 performance-wise. Wow. They did outgain the opponent 6.9 to 5.6. Here's my top 10, and a lot of it has to do because of yards per play. That's the main stat I go by. And also, if you're a big dog, Texas A&M was my number 1 team. They were on your list?
Yes, they were.
8.8 yards a play to 4.2 for Missouri, and that's a good Missouri football team.
Yes.
A&M got their quarterback back, Wegman, and that's a 1.5 upgrade, so playing well. Wisconsin crushed Purdue, 8.1 yards a play to 4.5. Sammy P gave us the lowdown on that on Saturday morning. Told me that Purdue, the players are not happy.
That's the only reason why I didn't put that on my list, because I thought it had a lot to do with Purdue and where that program is right now. But
but they really boat raced them. As a 12.5-point favorite, they win by 50. Army, 10.5 yards a play, and Tulsa had just 3.7. So Army was my third highest performance. Arkansas upset over Tennessee, double-digit dog win straight up. They outgained Tennessee, 5.8 yards a play to 5.1. We know how explosive Josh Heupel's offense is. That was just amazing. Mississippi came up with a high rating after their loss, 6.3 yards a play. Their defense showed up, just 4.1 yards a play they allowed. Iowa State was my number 6. Ohio State, Oregon, Pittsburgh over North Carolina, and SMU over Louisville.
Pittsburgh should be in that list. Undefeated. Pretty surprising there for that team, but good. Okay, let's go to the run percentage.
You want to do underachievers? Or yours kind of mirror?
Mine mirror, so you can
Mine
look
don't.
at yours first.
Tulsa was the biggest underachiever for the day against Army. Purdue, number 2. There you go. Those are teams you want to bet against, I think, each and every week. Kennesaw State, a horrible performance against Jacksonville State. East Carolina was a team that a lot of people liked early in the year, and they played well, but they lost to Charlotte and were outgained by more than a yard and a half per play. Western Michigan against Ball State was a bad performance. Air Force against Navy. I really dropped Air Force's number. They killed me on the total. They killed me on the side. So it was a bad game for me. So I've really adjusted Air Force's power rating.
It is weird to see this Air Force team down so bad.
And then James Madison, they're next. Let's talk about them. They crushed North Carolina, scored over 50 in the first half. Now Carolina does have some problems with Mac Brown getting up there in age. He's really not developing players, and they're not prepared. But James Madison won big the next weekend. Then they play Louisiana Monroe. Yep. It was a segue to our run percentage and seconds per play team. They're one of the top rushing teams in football and most methodical, and they pull off the upset over James Madison.
It is interesting, and I have to do the actual against the spread numbers for these top 10 teams still, but you will see a lot of these teams that are on the top performer are run heavy, play slow, and a lot of them that are on the bottom performers are very pass heavy. And a lot of that goes to if they're playing from behind and they have no choice to pass. But for the most part, all right, we are going top 10 run percentage here. Number 1 is still the UNLV Rebels. They did drop down a little bit because I think they were like 73% going into last week's game. Now, since the last 2 weeks, though, we've had a quarterback change with Williams taking over. So we are going to see a little bit more pass. But UNLV, 69%. And then Central Florida, they bumped up a little bit. They were on this list last week, 68%. Oregon State was second. They moved down a little bit, 66%. Vandy, 66%. There you go. There's a team that has been very competitive in the SEC this year, which we have not seen the last few years. And then South Carolina is at 65.7%.
And with an asterisk, we do take out the service academies because it's a given that how much they're going to run the football. But you're right. Vanderbilt, there you go. They can run it. They're methodical. They shorten the game. Clark Lee's doing a nice job there. He has improved that program. I think they won 0 games the year before he got there, and they have won 3, I think, the last 2 years. So he's a good defensive coach, and boy, they showed that they can score as well. So
they got that
something
quarterback.
something to keep an eye on. And then you mentioned Louisiana Monroe on our list at number 6. Sam Houston State's another one. They can run the football, and I've always said, if you can double up the yardage in your opponent, I need to go back and run that. I'll run that. I'll have that tomorrow for you. I'll go back and look at all the games. And the results is a given that if you double up your opponent in rushing and there's 2 caveats, over 150 yards and double up your opponent, you cover the point spread 70% of the time. Ooh. Yeah.
And you have projected rushing yards for every matchup going into that week. So that is nice to see. We'll have you run that tonight and see how it is doing this year. Just to finish off this list, 8, Tulane, 64.9%.
And they had a big game against UAB. Now, UAB's quarterback Zeno was out for that game, and it was a 6-point drop-off. Oh. So I'm sure there was a lot of short fields for Tulane in that game, but they can run there. And the talent's still there from when Willie Fritz was there. So a testament to him and how well he recruited to Tulane, because Fritz was 22-4 the last 2 years for Tulane.
How about that big win for Houston over TCU? Thursday night game, right? Thursday or Friday? I can't remember.
Houston came through once again, and it was a team that we liked earlier in the year, and they just didn't perform against UNLV, but they did against Oklahoma. They covered that game and had a shot to win the game on the road at Oklahoma. So that's a team to watch. I think that they're going to be good with Willie Fritz.
Well, they threw you off a little bit with getting shut out in back-to-back weeks.
That's
and
very
then
true.
They come in hot and beat TCU there. But so there is our top 10 run percentage up to date for this year so far in college football.
It's not really our top 10. That's the actual stats of the games that have been played.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Without the service academies.
Without the service academies. I forget to
I wish
mention
we
that
had the
every
top 10
week.
pass percentage teams.
Well, Anne, I think she was working on
Oh,
this
there they
for
are.
us. And there we go. Our the top 10 pass percentage teams right now in college football. Number 1 is Syracuse at 63%. Hawaii comes in at number 2, 62.5. Rice, 62. LSU, 61.5. And then Colorado, 61%. Colorado actually moved down a little bit on this list from last week. I believe they were 3rd.
Yeah, when you look at that list, and we watched some of the Syracuse game because they were playing our UNLV running Rebels, and they pulled the upset in overtime. Kyle McCord threw the ball over 50 times in that game. Syracuse, that's what they're going to do. And Hawaii, Timmy Chang, he was a quarterback, loves the run and shoot, loves the spread offense, spread it out 4 wide and throw the ball. So hasn't worked as great for Rice. They've been beat up a little bit, and we talk about this a lot. The teams that throw a lot sometimes are not as successful. And you look at that list, and there really isn't anybody that's had a dominating start to the season so far out of that list. USC's had their struggles. Colorado, has had their struggles. They did pull off a big upset over Central Florida, but they've got an NFL quarterback. And McCord's probably an NFL quarterback as well for Syracuse. So those are 2 great quarterbacks.
NFL quarterback, not necessarily NFL starting quarterback, but they'll
be in the league they'll be playing on Sunday and starting. How hard they work once they get there will kind of define that.
To be determined. Exactly. Colorado, big test this weekend. I'm getting off topic, but I believe they have Kansas State. So we will find out a lot about both of these 2 teams. Yep. Kansas State at Colorado. So we'll see where our ratings are and find out about these 2 here.
That's a big game because I love that Kansas State coach. He's one of the best. He came from North Dakota State and won national championship after national championship there, and he has overachieved every year at Kansas State.
Yeah, and they're looking very good right now. Especially, we'll go down the next 5 pass percentage. USC, 60%, coming off that tough loss this weekend. Oklahoma State, 60%, and I keep saying it, but they have one of the best running backs in the country, and they are still passing because they've been playing from behind and really struggling to get him going. San Jose State, 59%, Georgia State, 59%, and TCU, 59%. Now, the decimal might be a little bit, but I just kept that one simple.
Yeah, no, they are all decimals, and they're out like 3 places. But I laugh to see San Jose State at 59% because that's Ken Niumatalolo's the head coach there. And he was the head coach at Navy for 16 years, and all they did was run the ball 90% of the time. He has to be having the time of his life. But they were so competitive under him at Navy and very, very successful that, like I said, he did bring in brought in a offensive coordinator that is a pass-heavy coach. And I was really shocked to see that when he did. And you know what? He's let his guy coach, and the cupboard wasn't bare when they got there. Brent Brennan did a great job of recruiting to the Spartans, and they're going to be good, San Jose, and they throw it.
Steve Cofield, shout out to him if he is still watching her. He was just talking about San Jose and talking about all those points that you just made, and we both thought they would cover against Nevada this past weekend. They did not cover the 7, but they did win. Kind of goes to show you what you always say. Just happy to get the win, I'm sure.
No doubt about it. That's all that counts. When you're a head coach, when they're going to give you a raise, they don't ask you what's your ATS record. What's your win-loss record? That's all that matters. And did you beat the biggest rival?
Going from pass-heavy teams, we're going to go right to teams that play fast. And East Carolina has been at the top of the list now for a couple weeks, playing 20.6 seconds per play. I'll go through the first 5 if you want to do the second 5. Sure. Old Dominion hops up there, 21.6. South Florida, 21.7. Pittsburgh, 22.1. And then Oklahoma State, 22.1. 22.1 as well.
And this is supposed to translate, why I keep these stats because I want to know who plays fast because you want to go over with those teams, and I want to know who plays slow because you go under with those teams. And Mississippi, number 6, 22.5 seconds per play. They're 5-1 under this year because they've got such a great defense. And Lane Kiffin is a mastermind offensive coach. That's what he's known for. He's an offensive genius. And he does have a really good quarterback in Jackson Dart, one of the best in the country. Mm-hmm. But their defense is dominated. Jacksonville State, Rich Rodriguez, they're 7th in the country in time in between plays, just 23 seconds. Mississippi State playing extremely fast. Now that's a team that lost their quarterback. That they had a really good quarterback with Blake Shapen. He is out. That was a 4-point drop off, and they have not played well without him. And they played at Georgia this week. That is going to be a tough spot for a young quarterback, a freshman quarterback with very little experience. And they're playing fast probably because they're playing behind Wake Forest and then Utah State, and 2 more teams that I believe are playing fast because they're playing from behind.
Utah State will host UNLV this Friday. Very, very big number here. UNLV 19-point favorite.
That could be a very high-scoring game. I'd like to bet that game over.
Ooh, what is it right now? 65.5.
Is that the first half?
Okay, you're expecting a lot of points. But nothing can be that easy, right? Of course,
no.
We're not just going off of pace of play to bet overs and unders like you made the point with Mississippi. That's why we have our over-under numbers and then compare. But it can help a lot. I had a really good day Saturday with totals. And that Penn State game, I actually made it right where the number was. Saw your number was significantly lower. Looked at those 2 teams playing each other. And both of them take a lot of time, about probably 28 seconds at least, maybe even 30. So I went under that one without really having a play because of my numbers, but looking at the trends and how they play helped me.
How did you do in your, you were given the invitation to be in the Circa Invitational for media basically and sports bettors. There's a lot of good sports bettors in that. I got kicked out and you got my spot, but that's okay. How did you do this week?
5-2.
Great. You're moving up.
Yes.
You're moving up in the standings.
And my 2 losses, both favorites.
Both favorites. Okay. You mentioned that earlier. I didn't know if that's the contest you were talking about or not, but I'd like to see you win that one.
Ooh. We'll leave it there.
Keep going.
Yeah. It's been getting better each week. So I will try to continue that there.
Somebody's here knocking at the door. All right, let's go.
Moving on to the slowest teams here. We've got our graphic coming up. You want to just go through those?
And you
10?
We didn't do it again. We should do this every week, but it seems like there's not enough time in the day. But you went over and did the ATS numbers of all the NFL teams.
Yes.
For their slowest, and we'll have those tomorrow. We'll do that. Make sure we have that. The ATS for the teams that play the fastest, and the ATS for the teams that play the slowest.
Correct.
And the passing and running too.
I will do that today for both college football and for NFL. So
Army is number 1, slowest team in the country, and they're 5-0 ATS. Louisiana Monroe, another team that has done well, 4-1 ATS. Now this one, Michigan is underachieved. We knew that they were going to have a tough year, and they're 1-5 ATS, but they play extremely slow. North Carolina State's another team that they've had quarterback problems. McCall, the transfer from Coastal Carolina, has been out all year, and they are another team that has had a poor ATS record. I don't even think they've won a game by the ATS yet, but they play slow. And then UCLA, 31.2 seconds is number 5.
Just talking about Monroe with that big win over James Madison. So they have definitely looked good. And then to Michigan's, to stick up for them, I mean, they have definitely played better than we even expected. And that is because of their run game and controlling the clock and their really good defense. So they have hung in there, if not won, some really big games that they very easily could have lost with having really no passing game.
There's first time they left the state of Michigan this past weekend going to Washington, who they beat for the national championship. Or if it wasn't the national championship, it was in the Final Four in the championship series. So
No, that was
big
the
revenge.
national
It was the national
championship.
championship game, yeah. So Washington, major revenge, the players at least, and the Huskies came through. That was a tough game for Michigan.
Really quick on that note, I know we're running out of time here, but with the turnover, and those two teams had the most players drafted, Michigan and Washington, from last year's two teams. Of course, we know both quarterbacks are now in the NFL, both backups as of right now. But so just a little bit of revenge, not the full revenge into that. Or would you say, because it was the biggest game of the year, that Washington should have got full revenge in that?
Oh, definitely. I would. Yeah, that it was a full revenge game for me. And Michigan, the cupboard wasn't bare when Moore got the head job. He's got 5 guys on his defense that are all NFL guys, and maybe 6. So they've got a lot of talent on the defensive side.
Quickly, right now, 6 through 10, slowest pace of play. Houston comes in at 6:31.2. Nevada snuck up there. I had to double check because I thought that was going to be UNLV, but it is not. It is the Wolfpack here, 31.1 seconds per play. Louisville, which is surprising, 31.3. Tulane, and then Utah is 10th right now in pace, which we know Kyle Whittingham.
All pretty much successful teams against the spread. Michigan and North Carolina State have disappointed, but they've been competitive. They've been right there with having a chance. So I can't wait to look at the numbers tomorrow, because the NFL, it's pretty alarming when you look at that on the teams who run it the most and the teams who pass it the most, what their ATS records are.
We're going to quickly go through our top 10, unless you think we should save it for tomorrow, but I think we've got time.
We'll run through them. There's the power rankings. You should go first.
Okay, I will go first here. Texas was number 1 last week, and they are still number 1. Again, they had a nice bye week while all that chaos was going on. Ohio State was my number 2 team. They are going to stay there. Big win over Iowa. A lot of people trying to make the case for that Iowa defense being able to hang in that one, but Ohio State is just too explosive offensively. 3, Georgia. 4 is Alabama. These two were tied at the same number last year. I had to bring Alabama down just a little bit, but they still didn't fall out of my top 4, even after that loss against Vandy. Defensively, they do have their question marks. Number 5 is Tennessee, even after that loss. Number 6 is Ole Miss. Looked good again last week or this past weekend. Number 7, Oregon, who, as Chris mentioned, has been a little bit disappointing. Have not really covered those big numbers against the teams that they really should take care of business. Tied at 8 is Clemson and Miami, Florida. And then number 10 is Penn State. I always like to give a little shout out, but Notre Dame and Iowa State are right there, tied at 11 after Penn State for me.
Yeah, a lot of similarities. I have Texas number 1, Ohio State number 2, Georgia number 3, a 1.5 back, Alabama number 4, right with you in line, Mississippi number 5, Oregon number 6, we're identical, Penn State and Tennessee. Well, actually, we're not identical. I was looking at the board and made the switch like she's supposed to, and I'm looking at it thinking it's your list still, but it was mine. And again, I go back to looking at the ratings. The top 8 teams in the country are within 5 points, with Texas down to Tennessee. And you know it. And if Texas played Tennessee tomorrow, which I don't know if they play this year or not, what a game that would be. And we could see those two play in the national championship. So Miami of Florida has much talent as anybody. If their coach, Mario Cristobal, could get talent out of the talent, they would be a top 8 team, but he just can't do it. He can't cover spreads. LSU number 10.
Hey, that was a big travel for them. I mean, coming all the way to the West Coast. We do have some numbers with that too that we need to look into with the Big 10 and Big 12, and they're traveling.
Yeah, I wonder how these teams travel. I never really looked into that and I thought about the commissioners, let's bring in UCLA and USC to the Big 10, but they've got to travel so far now. And then they probably thought, well, the NFL does it every week. Why can't we do it? And we don't play as many games as they do, but the NFL travels a little bit differently in luxury.
Yeah, a little bit more money there in that league. How many points did you say between your top and your 8?
5 points. Texas a 131 and Tennessee and Penn State a 126. So and less than a 1-score game. If those two teams played. So only Kalen DeBoer. And looking at my top 14 teams, their coach has been there 2 years or more. Only Kalen DeBoer with Alabama. brand new to his team.
Got a pretty good team there, and Jalen Milrow.
They had a big letdown though this week. So you got to make that note in the book that Kalen DeBoer's teams can have major letdowns.
Very true. Very true. All right. Well, that is it for us today here on Sports by the Book. We will be back tomorrow again, 9 a.m. But before we get out of here, I already teased another show here. Punchlines FN, go to that YouTube channel and please subscribe to that show as well. But we're going to check in with the producer of that show, in Ryan. And Ryan, what do we have on deck today for Punchlines?
Well, it won't be the end for Alex today. Alex will be making her double duty appearance on Punchlines FN. Again, a separate YouTube page at Punchlines FN. Frank Nicotero is the host. Alex White will be our co-host today. And I am your producer, Ryan McCormick. We'll be talking about stuff in Major League Baseball, the NFL, college football, WNBA, and college football, and some other things around the sporting world. So you're going to have to tune in at noon for some fun games, fun sports topics. Punchlines FN, separate YouTube channel. Again, but at noon, Alex White, Frank Nicotero, and myself.
Should be a fun show as always. I already saw these two sending things back and forth, so it'll be a loaded show. We will push as much as we can in that hour, just like we did here today. But I feel like we gave out a lot of great information. Tomorrow we have ATS. We are going to go through that same stuff for the NFL with run percentage, pass percentage, pace of play, and our top 10. So I'm really looking forward to that. We'll also have more baseball and WNBA and regular season hockey. So a lot this week. It's a great week for sports betting. We appreciate you all for being here. We'll see you again tomorrow. For Kenny White, I'm Alex White. Thank you, everybody behind the scenes. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. here on Sports by the Book.